Okay, there we go.
There we go. All right. Good evening, everybody. We want to welcome you to the special meeting of the South Yucca Lyndhurst Board of Education, tonight being December 8th, 2020. I want to say good evening to the administration, the fellow board members, and anyone else who might be joining us tonight or those who log in at a future moment. So we can start with a roll call, Mr. Hill.
Mr. Bloomberg,
Here.
Ms. Falkenberg,
Here.
Mrs. Jones,
Here.
Ms. Lee,
Here.
Mrs. Ryan.
Here.
All right. Seeing everyone is present, we can go right into discussion items. Dr. Reed, number
Yes.
2.
Yes. Well, good evening, everybody. And it's hard to believe we're in December already, but we are here. What we thought we'd do this evening as a discussion item is 2 important ones. Number 1, we are going to talk about our parent and family engagement activities that we've been having. I don't know if you had a chance to participate in some of our family workshops. Mrs. Malika Bussey is going to join us here this evening and speak along with Melissa Thompson with regards to our parent workshops and parent engagement. And we've also invited Mr. Carl Williamson, our Brush High School principal, is going to share with you some of the work that they've been doing on graduation requirements and graduation seals. So with that being said, I am going to mute my mic and turn it over to either Ms. Thompson or Mrs. Bussey, who will be talking about our family and parent engagement.
So I'll begin by introducing Mrs. Bussey. Of course, she does not need an introduction. It has been a pleasure to have Mrs. Bussey working with us as part of student services and the service that we're providing to our students and families. And so this evening, she's just going to share with you some updates and some of the exciting things that are happening in and around the SEL school community. So with that, I will turn my mic off, photo, and let her go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Ms. Thompson and Dr. Reed and the Board of Education for having me this evening. I'm excited to be able to share a little bit what's been going on with family and community engagement in the South Yucca Lyndhurst School District. I have put together a brief presentation that Mr. Capel, he's that expert at presenting. And so he is going to present it on the screen as I speak a little bit about FACE. So South Yucca Lyndhurst Family Community Engagement, better known as FACE. As it was mentioned, I'm the new Family and Community Engagement Coordinator and just excited about the opportunity that has been given to me. When we think about SEL's Family and Community Engagement, we do follow the practices of 3 specific groups. Ohio State Board of Education, Parent and Family Involvement. There's a large community through Ohio State that works through different policies that's associated with the Ohio State Board of Education, in addition to the national PTA's national standards for family school partnerships. So we align ourselves with those standards as well. And then also Joyce Epstein's framework of the 6 types of parent involvement. And I'm going to speak a little bit about each one of those 6 types right now. So the first one is creating a welcoming school climate. And so that's part of the role of family engagement, is to support our schools in providing that welcoming environment for our families so that they feel comfortable coming into our schools. Providing families with information related to child development and creating supportive and learning environments is another piece of the work of Ms. Epstein. Establishing effective school-to-home communication. And this is really important, particularly now in our pandemic. Not to be able to have those face-to-face conversations that we normally have has caused somewhat of a challenge. And so our principals have done a fabulous job providing information to our families through newsletters and different communications, but that communication back is not always the best. And so one of my roles and one of the things that I'm working on is how can we better connect our families who are home during this remote learning environment back to our school community. The fourth one, strengthening families' knowledge and skills to support and extend their children's learning at home in the community. I'll speak to that a little more when we talk about the different types of workshops that we are preparing for this particular school year. Engaging families in school planning, leadership, and meaningful volunteer opportunities. As we know right now with the pandemic, we're on hold with our volunteers, with the exception of those that are supporting a program at Rush High School, but that will be one of the focuses that we continue to do once we are past our pandemic. But this also involves having parents have some ownership and some decision-making and so forth. So again, that's another area. And then lastly, connecting students and families to community resources and strengthening supports that students have for their learning and their well-being. And so those particular ones that were bolded are the ones that I will focus on this evening in regards to our workshops. So we've held 3 workshops so far this year, and they all have been in this kind of environment with the live streaming, and they are found on YouTube if you ever want to go back and take a look. Our first one was navigating remote learning, and it was a Q&A that I facilitated with Making a Difference Consultant, and all 3 of these were with that particular partner. And in this particular one, I just asked questions. I posed some of our parents to ask them what were some of the things that they were struggling with in regards to navigating the remote learning. And this one happened before we went back to some in-person learning. And so we just went through a series of Q&A in discussing remote learning, some of the challenges, but also some of the successes that are occurring. There's some great things that are happening with our remote learning, and those things were highlighted as well. Our second workshop was What's on Your Plate? And this one was a pretty fun one. We had some parent guests who participated on our panel. And so we had representation from each grade band, elementary through high school. And we went through a series of activities with those parents where we talked about healthy ways to cope with stress. We recognize that during this particular time and the fact that we constantly have to pause or pivot, jobs, financial situations, there's just a lot of stress that's happening for our families. So we took the families through a series of activities. One in particular was that they had to have a plate, and they had to divide their plate into what their life looks like on a daily basis. And whether it be half of their plate was at work, a third might have been watching TV, and the rest of it was just dealing with kids all day, their families or whatever the case may be. But during that, it was really an eye-opening for our parents as they began to really look at their plate and identify that they may not be taking care of themselves, and to be able to find some ways to incorporate some healthy stress release type activities to help them manage all the things that are occurring in their lives. And then the follow-up to that, What's on Your Plate, we kind of revisit some of those items in dealing with stress, but then there was a 30-minute yoga class. And so there was a yoga instructor, and we did it live stream, and we did yoga. So if you're interested in a free yoga lesson for 30 minutes, tune in to What's on Your Plate Part 2, and you will have your yoga lesson. And that was, again, we got good feedback back from those that were able to watch it, because it did allow some stress as a stress reliever. As I was sitting in the chair participating as well, she taught us chair yoga, which I've never had chair yoga. But there was chair yoga and just little things that you can do while you're at work, just to try to relieve some of that stress that is occurring daily. And then coming soon, January 2021, we will be hosting another workshop, which is communication in a digital age. What's the 411 on cyberbullying? With all the remote learning, all the phones, all that's connecting. We know that kids sometimes get themselves in a little bit of trouble. And so we're going to do a workshop that helps support parents in navigating the digital age. And then lastly, I'm very excited to share that we will be doing our first FACE newsletter coming out in January, and it will provide families with information related to child development and creating supportive learning environments. So I'm really excited about this particular work that I will be doing in preparation for the release of our first volume for FACE. We will also spotlight some of our partners in our community, such as the YMCA, some of our faith-based partners, and share some of the wonderful things that they are doing to support our families. So that is my kind of spiel on what's happening in FACE. And thank you again for allowing me to take that opportunity to share.
Thank you, Mrs. Bussey. I'll let anybody want to make a comment, but we're just, so pleased at how quickly we've gotten things off the ground. And of course, having Mrs. Bussey in that role has been ideal because she's been in this district a long time. She's been in a leadership role. She knows our families, and I'm excited too to see the newsletter come out. So thank you very much, Mrs. Bussey.
Thank you for having me.
I do see Ms. Falkenberg's hand. Ms. Falkenberg, did you have something you wanted to say?
I just wanted to ask Malika how many families participated. Did we have pretty good participation?
Yeah. So what we find is that our participation occurs after the live streaming. So for example, on the first one, there was about 30 folks that were actually live on 1026, but we've had 300 plus views on the YouTube. This most recent one, what I noticed, it might have been 9 to 10 live, but since then we've had about 48 views on the YouTube site. And so the beauty of that live stream is that parents can come back and watch it when it's convenient for them. So that's kind of what we have found based on observation, that we might not have them live with us, but we do have some families that are going back to engage in the activities and the workshops.
That's great to hear. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Bussey. I usually catch you guys at the end of the presentation, but I am one of those numbers that go back in and try to view, and it warms my heart to see that the numbers are steady going up where people are going back to watch them. I think it's great that it's on that YouTube feed, so we can almost continue to send people to that same platform. They come here to watch the board. They come here to render their comments. They come here to get some coping skills. They come here to get some relief. They come here to get everything. And I don't even think we intended for that to be the one-stop channel, so to speak. And now it's there. Ms. Flowers is doing great. I mean, and then to see you there with her, so I'm appreciative of that. Aaron brought up a good point too. Just how, I don't know, I think parents that typically didn't even think they would need our services are now utilizing the services. And it's not even about just calling people services department to I need. It's just reaching out, knowing that everybody is in a different place right now. And to be the district to have opportunities available to help them get through this process. We know we're all stuck in the middle of this process, but what are we affording to help them see the light at the end of the tunnel? And Aaron, I'll just go ahead and let you share it. I don't want to take your thunder because you kind of asked me to do it, but go ahead and you can do it.
I didn't reply to your message because but I was on social media, and a parent a few months ago who actually was really struggling and having a hard time adjusting with her child. You know, they suffer with ADHD and just is really busy. She had, voiced some concern that she had tagged myself, Cassandra, and Stephanie previously, and in regards to her struggles with her student and getting support. I believe all of us tried to direct her to Pupil Services. I'm so sorry, Pupil Services Department, you are our go-to. Right, this school year, you have been our go-to, and I appreciate you all greatly. because every time I get something, it's contact People Services, contact Ms. Bussey, contact Ms. Thompson, because they're there to offer services to assist us. So it was good today when I went on and what she posted today, and I'll actually read it verbatim. And it simply said, initially she spoke about how she was tired of hearing, do this with your child, try this, you're not engaging your child enough. But she said today she was able to one of our social workers with the SEL school district about her situation. And she said she just listened. She let me talk. When I was done, she said, you're definitely not the only one going through this. I know you're doing your best, and I'm here to support you. You are frustrated and have your hands full. I'm here to listen. Let me give you the names of some experts that specialize in this sort of thing, and maybe they can help you. And at the end, she says, I feel so much better. So not judge. This is what you want and we need to hear. And it's so true, because myself personally, it's like this as a parent, this is consuming. I'm at work getting emails from teachers like, hey, is your child doing A, B, C, and D? And it does. It's like all of this is on my plate. Like, so I was able to go back the other day and listen to Dr. Flowers, and this is what you all had done for that. I was like, oh, this is good. Like, this is really good. Like, me as a parent, I need this. We don't have all the answers. And it's like, we're all going through this together, and we're all working through it together. And I have other people in other districts that are like, hey, our kids aren't getting this. Our district isn't offering this for us. So to be able and to be in a district that actually is offering something, I am very appreciative to you all. Ms. Bussey, thank you so, so much. I am ever so grateful for you and everything that you've done and everything that you will continue to do. Parents keep asking, is she coming back to rolling? No, she's not coming back to rolling. Right? Sorry. Gained, like, you literally have gone from rolling, and you've gained almost every child in this district. So thank you. Nothing you have done has gone unnoticed so far this school year. I want to let you know that personally. So thank you, Ms. Bussey and Pupil Services Department.
Thank you.
If we're good with that, I know we have our second discussion item this evening, and I don't know who's going to start it off, Ms. Thompson, but it is about graduation requirements and graduation seals. So I thank you, and Ms. Thompson, I see you there, so go ahead. I'm going to turn my
yes, so thank you. So good evening again. The work that Mr. Capel and I are doing together in supporting our college and career readiness and pathways, our work with our graduation requirements has truly been a collaborative effort. And together with Mr. Williamson and the team of school counselors at Rush, we have been able to review some things, and we're still making some reviews and trying to stay current with all of the many legislative changes and things that are occurring. So tonight, Mr. Williamson is going to share with you what our current recommendations are, which are consistent with the Ohio Department of Education and information that has been published by them. We wanted to just spend some time with you this evening sharing that for your feedback and response. So, Mr. Williamson, I will defer to you.
Good evening. I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of an issue. First of all, thank you for having me present tonight, Ms. Thompson, Dr. Reed, Mr. Capel, Board of Ed. Appreciate the opportunity always to present information to you folks. A couple of things that we'll be talking about tonight. A couple of them are informational, meaning they are graduation requirements that have been identified and mandated by law. And then there's some recommendations that we are proposing to Dr. Reed to present to you for consideration at a time to be determined. If you remember last year, I know it was that long ago, we talked about class rank. We're recommending to Dr. Reed for presentation to the board for consideration that with the class of 21-22, we're asking that the class rank for the class of 2022 and beyond will transition to the Latin honor cum laude system. Summa cum laude with the highest praise with a 4.0 grade point and above. The magna cum laude with great praise, 3.75 to 399. Cum laude with praise, 3.5 to 3.74. And the reason why we're doing this is we're seeing more and more students come back to the district, and they're coming in midway through their 4-year high school career. We have another student who transferred into the school year this year, just recently started within the last 2 weeks. We want to get ahead of this. We also talked about this last school year, and we said that most of the area high schools around us have already made this transition, and I'm formally recommending to Dr. Reed to present to you for a decision to be made later. So that's a recommendation to Dr. Reed. Informational requirements for graduation. We know that the minimum number of credits that a student at Brush must earn to graduate is 20 course credits. We also know that students must complete a minimum of 10 hours of community service for each year they're enrolled at Brush. They also, at this time, the class of 21 and 22, they're obligated to meet the following. They need to show that they are ready for college or a job by completing one of the 3 choices. 1, earn at least 18 points on the 7 end of course exams. If you remember, the 7 end of course exams are Algebra 1, English 1, Geometry, English 2, Biology, U.S. History, and American Government. That is for the class of 21 and class of 22. It's a little different for the class of 23 and 24, and that's another day, another topic. If they do not achieve the 18 points on that, they can earn a minimum of 12 points by receiving an industry recognized credential or a group of credentials in a single career field and earn the required score on the work keys, and or earn a remediation free score on the ACT or SAT. Or if they don't do any of that, they can do the following. They can show competency by earning a passing score of a 684. Now, again, when it says passing for competency's sake, it is 684 on the Algebra 1 and English 2 tests. Students who do not pass the test will be offered additional support and must retake the test at least one more time. Students who achieve the 684 on the Algebra 1 or the English 2 test will then have to secure at least 2 seals, and we'll talk about that in a moment. For students who do not meet the competency score, there are 3 options for them to choose to potentially earn a high school diploma, and that is the selection of 2 diploma seals. Option 1, they need to demonstrate 2 career-focused activities. Letter A is foundational, which is a proficient score on web exams or acceptance into approved apprenticeship program. Letter B, supporting. This is a work-based learning or earn the required score on the work keys or earn the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal. Now, here's the key to this particular option. Students must choose one of the foundational options to satisfy the requirements of using option 1 to show competency. So they're looking at letter A specifically for that piece. If they don't want to do option 1, they can do option 2, which is enlist in the military. Option 3, they can complete a college credit plus course in math or English, and it must not be a remedial course. Now, let's talk about this for a brief second. If a student does not achieve the 18 points on the end of course exams, the reality of a student taking a CCP course in math or English that is not remedial, we're seeing far and few between of those students at the high school. So just keep that in the back of your head. So they choose between the options 1, 2, and 3, and then they have to earn 2 diploma seals. Now, here are the ones that are from the state, and they're identified with Ohio at the end of it because that's a state seal. The Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal, the Industry Recognized Credential Seal, the College Ready Seal, the Military Enlistment Seal. Those are all seals that the state said, here's what we're going to have available, and here are the requirements to earn it. And the requirements for those specific seals are identified on the website for ODE. The citizenship seal simply means the student just has to score a passing score of a 3 or higher on the U.S. history test on the end of course exam. For the science, they just have to score a 3 or higher on the biology test. And then there's the honors diploma seal, which after 2 years ago, we now have multiple versions of honors diplomas that students can earn. There's a seal of biliteracy and a seal of technology. Those are all the state seals. There isn't anything we can do about those. Those are the ones that the state came out and said, here's an option for a kid. So if a student wanted to earn 2 seals and they wanted to choose from the Ohio seals, so be it. If they wanted to only do 1 seal from the state, they can do that, but then they'd have to do one of the next 3 seals that we're recommending to Dr. Reed for consideration to recommend to the Board of Ed to act on at a time to be late, to be determined later. The first seal that's local driven is community service seal. We're recommending students must exceed the standard minimum requirement. Remember, each student is required to do 10 hours per year enrolled at Brush. For this community service seal, we're asking students must complete a minimum of 15 community service hours for each year enrolled at Brush to earn the community service seal. So that's definitely raising the rigor in that seal. Fine arts and performing seal. We broke it down into multiple categories. For students who are in the music track, they must complete successfully 3-year-long performing ensembles. Performing ensemble is defined as any graded musical ensemble which performs in concerts throughout the school year. They can choose between the visual art components, successful completion of 3-year-long courses, successful completion of 6 semester-length courses, or what we could call introductory courses. Successful completion of 4 semester-length courses, provided at least 2 of those courses is a secondary level course, meaning they're level 2 or advanced. So that would be like your advanced ceramics, your advanced photography, your honors photography, your AP photography, and stuff like that. It could have a combination where the student must earn 3 full credits through a combination of any of the above course ensembles. The next seal is the student engagement seal. And this seal is going to take a little bit of work between the producer and or director and administration. And we know that. So the student engagement seal for musical and play performances, if they successfully participate as determined by the production or director in at least 2 school-produced musicals. Successful participation as determined by the production director in at least 2 school-produced plays. And then there's the combination, successful participation as determined by the production director and 1 school-produced musical and 1 school-produced play. And again, this area here will be sorted out and mutually agreed upon between the production director and administration. The next piece of the student engagement seal is athletic participation, including marching band and or cheerleading. They must earn a varsity letter. They need to complete 2 seasons of athletics, including marching band and or cheerleading, confirmed by the head coach and the athletic director and or marching band director. And then there's a component for extracurricular activities. They need to participate in 4 clubs confirmed by the club advisor, or they need to participate in 4 years in the same club confirmed by the club advisor. Included in this is the actual language from ODE regarding the Ohio High School graduation requirements for the classes of 21 and 22, knowing that they are different for the class of 23 and 24. If you have questions, I'll gladly do my best to answer.
Mr. Williams, I do have a question with regards to the clubs. Just like setting the criteria. We'll work with the advisor, like, to have now all clubs are created equal. Some are more intense than others and require more work. Will there be some type of criteria set so that we have some type of uniformity with regard to what participate means?
When you look at the various clubs that are offered at the high school, there is a varying degree of intensity for clubs. For example, the robotics club versus, let's say, the French club. Robotics club meets 2 times, maybe 3 times a week in a non-pandemic year. And they do that for 8 months out of the 9 in a school year, whereas French will meet once a month. So yes, there will have to be some variance given, and we'll have to create a document to show the rigor to meet that stipulation. Working document.
I have a question. At the very beginning, when you mentioned has to be enrolled at Brush, can you define what enrolled actually means?
Enrolled at Brush means you're a student that's identified in the South Yucca-Lyndhurst City Schools. You are enrolled as a student at the high school. It's not taking classes at the high school. It could mean that you're taking classes through CCP, but you're technically still a high school student at Brush.
Okay. And I can't remember all of the wording around that because that was at the beginning. Could you put the presentation back up? Okay, hold on. Okay, so my question is regarded to the complete a minimum of 10 community service hours. So if a student is homeschooled, but expects that their high school diploma is going to be conferred upon them through Brush, or if they're a college credit plus student and the expectation is that their diploma is going to come out of Brush, I think they should be held to that same requirement.
They are. Students who are at the high school each year that they're enrolled, they have to complete the 10 hours as everybody else. There's no variance on that.
Okay. So they don't have to physically be a student at the school as long as they're on our rolls and will be included in our diploma giving.
Correct. And they're still obligated.
Okay.
They're still obligated to meet the requirements of our district and our school to graduate with.
Okay. I'm going to admit I'm an old timer as it relates to graduation, and that is you take your coursework, you pass or fail it, you pass it, you get a diploma. But I know we're in a different time, in a different world, so I will grapple with that myself. However, I think the fact that there are so many different options to being able to get a high school diploma, I think, for example, the community service seal, if that's going to be one of the items that is going to take the place, in a sense, of passing your classes, I think the benchmark needs to be significantly higher than 5 hours more than every other student.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Let me first state, back in the day when we were all school aged children, the rule of thumb was you go to school, you pass your classes, you get your diploma, and on the way you went. In the day and age that we are educating our students, whether it's South Yucca-Lyndhurst or other districts, it is not an easy task just for going to school in this day and age, especially in a pandemic. And it is not an easy task to sit in front of a test and be determined whether or not you pass or you fail it, and then that be the end of the world if you don't pass your exams and you don't graduate. So couple years ago, actually, with the class of 2014, the states decided that they were going to go to this new system for points being earned on end of course exams, which they put into play with the class that graduated in 17. Now, the first group that had to meet those obligations. They realized right out of the gate that some of the requirements that they had on those exams were not attainable for all students equally and equitably. So they came up with the alternate pathways. Well, the last couple of years, we had various alternate pathways that have morphed into varying obligations and requirements for different cohorts of students. For example, the class of 20 had a set requirement for graduation that is different from the class of 21. The class of 21 has a set graduation requirement that is different from the class of 22. And then we know that the class of 23 and beyond, they have their own set of criteria requirements. So the state is continuously moving that carrot in front of our kids, and they keep dangling it, and they keep changing. And what they're changing, not only the graduation requirements, they're also changing the alternate pathways and the tests. So now our current ninth graders will not be taking all 7 exams. They're only going to be required to take English 1 and the English 2 test and algebra test, and then they'll be taking the biology test, the U.S. history test for potential seals. So it's not even in the same ballpark what we're asking the kids that are getting ready to graduate in class of 21. So I agree with you that it would make so much more sense if we just said, okay, go to class, pass, get your diploma, and on your way you go. Unfortunately, we're not seeing that to be so clear and cut.
Mr. Williams, I have a regards to volunteer. Mr. Bloomberg, I have made a note of looking at potentially increasing that requirement and looking at that higher. But I also have a question, Mr. Williams. I also know, again, this is not a criticism. I've seen all different kind of volunteer work. Some more rigorous and more involved than others, and so that's one of the things I also look at. Who verifies it, and the level of involvement. When they volunteer, did they volunteer for a half hour, or was that a volunteer all day long? And so I guess I'd be looking at also the level of involvement of that volunteerism, because that's a seal. And I agree, Mr. Bloomberg, that's a seal. So I guess we look at upping not maybe just hours, but I guess the level of involvement. So can you briefly tell us, sometimes I know kids might be all day long, 8 hours volunteering, and then sometimes it's 2 hours after school or whatever. And is there a way to increase the rigor for awarding it as a seal for volunteerism?
So the last 3 school years, there's been changes made to the expectations for community service that would be accepted. And that was based upon what ODE said that they're willing to accept.
Okay.
And from the alternate pathway route. So there are forms that we have to have students complete. So when the student completes the form, they take it to the person that they're conducting the work with. They have to write a description. They have to have the signature. They have to have the time. They have to have the dates. That information is then brought in to the guidance office. It is then kept on file and we log it. With the alternate pathways, as they continue to evolve, that piece there is growing. So yes, there is a check and balance. If there is a question, last school year was not the normal because we ended on the pandemic. But if you take a typical school year, it is not uncommon for me or another administrator to be contacted and say, I need to take a look at this request for acceptance of community service. This doesn't seem like it passes the muster test. And then we have to make a communication to the kid and the parent and say, hey, we're disputing this. We need to have another avenue because this isn't going to work. We do have those conversations taking place. In developing this requirement or this recommendation for this particular seal, our district proposed 15 per year that they're enrolled at the high school is pretty heavy compared to other high schools in the area. There's an area high school in Lake County, won't name it, that only had the kids do 20 hours community service to earn this. So that's just showing you
Okay.
an
No,
example.
thank you. I just want to ask that. Thank you.
I do have a question, Mr. Williamson. Considering the state of schools today with the kids being out so long, are you getting a lot of parents that are interacting with guidance to see the path that their kids are on for graduation? I know when the seniors now went to school in October, they got that folder. How many, does it seem like a lot of parents are reaching out to see where their kids are? And if they are, roughly, do we have a lot of them that are behind with the points in the required end of course tests?
So, Dr. Reed, how truthful do you want me to be? It's December. Every year we go through this, so we know we're going to get them through.
I want to know the down and dirty of it. I don't want to hear the optimistic baloney if that's not what's happening.
Well,
I want to know what our students are doing. I could tell you what I hear from my wife, who's at Cleveland Heights, and it's, in my opinion, very disturbing, and I would have to imagine it's similar elsewhere. So I want to know.
Well, my intention is not to rat and say it's not being done. My question is, considering I know the difficulty that parents are having right now just with their kid being home online alone. I'm just trying to be proactive to see, do we need to be extending some more extra assistance to families that are just burnt out? And I'm just being honest. I'm not saying it because I want to know who's failing, and you're not doing your job, but what other components of life right now are families struggling with? Because I'm going to tell you, I got a senior, and I'm so sorry for whoever hears this. That teacher called the other day, and I said, here's his cell phone number. He is 17.5 years old. I am done. And if that's what I'm doing with a 12th grader, I'm just thinking of how much more help do we need to reach out and give these families that are just tapped out?
So the nitty gritty is simply this. The teachers at the high school are doing a bang up job of presenting information to our kids on a daily basis. Our kids are showing up to virtual classes and they're doing the best they can. I'm proud of our staff, first and foremost. Second, we're getting ready to test the fall administration of end of course exams in January 11th through the 15th. I know you're going to say, well, that's not fall, but based on the time frame that the state has given, it's considered fall. And we are testing any senior who needs to make up points to improve their total 18 points to earn on the end of course exam requirement. We have approximately 31 seniors that need to improve their scores of 18. Quite frankly, if you're asking me to be brutally honest with you, we're looking at potentially 19 of those 31 potentially not graduating. To say commencement is tonight, but I didn't want to say that because we have these conversations, as Dr. Reed will tell you, each year. In January, I give her a heads up. In March, I give her a heads up. In April, I give her more of a picture, and then in May, it's like a daily thing until I get the final number through. So that's where we are right now.
Okay.
31 seniors needing to improve their scores. However, with the recommendation that we're proposing to Dr. Reed to present to the board for approval, if a student doesn't earn the 18 points on the end of course exams, but they do score a 684 on the Algebra 1 and English 2 test, they then would only need to worry about receiving 2 seals.
Okay.
When you look at the number of students that need to do that, out of those 1, we're sitting in good shape. So if it comes down to, is my concern more about testing requirements being a cause for graduation, not being something that a student at Brush experiences in June? That's not my main concern right now. My bigger concern is what you're seeing with the pandemic.
Yes.
Study that just came out yesterday across the country. You have schools, you have states, stating all across the country that they've never seen this number of students fail. We're having conversations at the high school on what we can do to help our students. It does require some flexibility on our staff, but it also requires some flexibility on our students and our parents. And we're coming up with those solutions so that we can best meet the needs of our kids. At the same time, making sure that we're upholding the standards of what we expect at Bronx High School. So when you walk across the stage in June this school year, your diploma means something. So yes, we've had a large number of senior parents reach out and they're saying, hey, thank you for the information. We do have some senior parents who have made it very clear in the phone calls that I made last week. I was told flat out by a couple parents, you know, Mr. Williamson, guess what? You're 18, deal with it.
And it's hard. And I appreciate that answer that you gave me. And I mean, I'm not trying to say 19 out of the 31 is nothing, but I'm going to tell you, when I sit here and cross my fingers, I'm thinking you are going to come with hundreds that are in trouble. So yes, in one breath, that makes me feel a little better. And I know that that's sad because any number lost is a bad number. But I was looking for like 50, 60, 70. So that tells me right there that you all are trying to be as proactive as you can and not waiting down to the wire. So that was the answer I was looking for. So I appreciate it.
One of the things, Ms. Thompson, I know that's why I wanted you to kind of come on there because, you know, this is a very personal thing, so we don't want to talk about any, and I know the board doesn't expect that, any individuals, but I think one of the things that Ms. Thompson and I've talked about is, first of all, her department meets on a weekly basis and they identify students and families that are struggling, and I'll let you talk to it. And then we also talk about this pandemic about, we're going to be shifting our focus of really of how the type of support we're going to have to give families. And go ahead and as much care on the issue of beyond seniors, what we're doing for some of the other students.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. So when you look at just the sheer volume of all of the information and all of the requirements for graduation that are state required, and you've got the and, then you have the ors and the options and all of this. To your point, Mr. Bloomberg and Ms. Jones, I mean, just trying to keep up with it, and our parents aware of what's going on, our students aware, are they tracking, consistent with our core beliefs of our students, taking ownership for their learning. One of the things that we are intending to present to Dr. Reed, to present to you, next week is a product that will help us able to better communicate with our parents and our students what the status of their work is relative to graduation requirements, not just waiting until they're at their senior year, but really develop with our students and our families, this kind of pathway so that they can see and they can log on and they can determine how many points they have, where they are, what skills they have, how far they are from that place. Mr. Eddie Hall, has been very instrumental in the leadership of this effort and has been working with our first ring school districts. They had recommended this particular company to us, Transio, and several of our school districts in the area are using this because it's helping to be able to manage, again, all the skills, all the requirements, not taking away from what the school counselors are doing and others, but another way for those students and parents to be actively engaged, not again until the end, but in the beginning so that they know what to expect and how to manage all of this. And so with this, they'll be able to develop with us for our local seals, as well as it's already aligned to the state seals and the other graduation requirements, but also our success plans that are required, as well as, I believe it was in September, if I'm not mistaken, the board approved the at-risk plans that we are now required to maintain. There's so many different, platforms and requirements, and it is, quite the task, of trying to manage all of this and keep up to date on this. And again, I have to give credit to Mr. Hall. He's on top of it, and he's, checking and having these meetings, connecting with our technology department to make sure that things are seamless and smooth. We've got our Schoology platform, and adding this to, we're trying to make sure that we're not duplicating service, that we're not, making an investment in something that is not needed. And actually, we're looking at how we might be able to replace some current things and just have a one-stop shop to be able to help our parents and our students in a more meaningful way to keep up with what's happening with all of these many changes.
I have a question, Melissa. If I might, you want to go first, Linda? Go ahead.
No, it's okay. What I was going to tell you, if hopefully Melissa and I can answer any of the questions. Mr. Williamson had been out ill for a few days, and I think he was trying his best here. So I think he might have left the meeting not feeling good. So hopefully we can answer your question. If not, we'll write it down. Make sure.
Yeah, you probably can. I'm just wondering about the whole processing of this, because some of those requirements, for instance, if they choose the clubs or the that extra service project, that obviously has to start freshman year. It's not something that they could just do at the last minute senior year. So how do you broach that with students? I don't think
a few things. Actually, one of the questions I had as I reviewed their recommendations, again, they've been working on this for a while, and those are just recommendations. I'm still pondering them myself. Some of those things, manage your own plan. And I think that's the piece we want to make sure is, I had questions with regards who's setting the criteria, who is going to keep track of the criteria. I mean, obviously, I think there's going to have to be a graduation plan that works with you come in and have your portfolio, so to speak, Mrs. Falkenberg, and be able to do that piece. And I know Ms. Thompson works more directly with the counselors than me, but it definitely, in some cases, is going to be labor intensive. And my recommendation is make sure it's a plan that we can manage on both ends. So Ms. Thompson, anything, you want to add to?
No, with the seals, since the students do have the option, because of course, with Ohio Means Jobs, for example, the student may already be in the position for some of these seals that are separate and independent of our local. And for some of them, because their work has already been documented, for some, they should be able to apply for this class. And that is honestly why we are wanting to, although the future would be that this information that Mr. Williamson presented would be a standard in our course description book moving forward. For us right now, we are currently still in first semester. And so if we're able to move forward and get this in motion for our current year students, whatever it is that can apply, certainly, within the guidelines of the Ohio Department of Education, of course, we want to be able to apply whatever provisions we can to support our students right now. And moving forward, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry. So, and as I indicated, with the tracking of and keeping up with all of these things, again, that's why we're wanting to move forward with Transio is the name of the effort. So that way we can get our young people in the queue now. We really have to, early and often talk to our students about what is required for graduation. There's a lot. And I think that sometimes, they're just, going to high school, and like, oh, I was there. And we really need to make sure they understand the level of rigor and requirement that is expected of them. And so, this is a start. And again, it will be part of our course description book moving forward. Right now, it's just in the interest of doing whatever we can now to be able to support our current year seniors and moving forward.
Right. So let's say for next year's freshmen, are they going to look at the course description book and say, I don't think I want to do the tests or, all of the work in class. I would just prefer doing 15 hours service and then be in drama club for 4 years and then just kind of let the rest slide. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I do. I understand what you're saying. And I would say and hope not no, because that's not the way that it's going to go. I mean, for example, I can give you Miss Johnson, Bridget Johnson, even last week, Tuesday. So it must have been last week. No, this week. Yesterday, had a meeting with Mr. Williamson was sharing with me with our 9th grade students and sharing with them requirements for graduation. We are making sure our students are hearing from us again, often and intentional in our conversation of what it takes to be a graduate, the profile of a Rush High School graduate. It's not just what the state is requiring, but what our expectation and standard is as well. And so we are wanting to make sure that we're sharing this information with our students, not waiting to the last minute. And Ms. Johnson just this week, yesterday, shared this with students in the 9th grade. We're wanting to include our 6th grade students. I'm sorry. Include our 6th grade students, as well in this conversation, starting them early, helping them understand that this is the standard, this is the expectation.
And encouraging them then, I would guess, to work to be involved in a club or get those hours in case senior year hits them. Okay, I think I got it. Thank you, Melissa.
Yes. And again, we are starting early with our college and career pathways plan. It's a K-12 plan. It's a K-12 effort, and while some of the efforts that the Ohio Department of Education requires don't begin until the 6th grade, in our meetings, in our conversation that Eddie Hall is having with our elementary school and our intermediate middle school counselors, and really looking at how are we starting early and helping our young people understand even what AP means. We're wanting to really be deliberate and intentional because our AP students we know are right now at our K-3 buildings in Greenview. And we have to begin to really, impress upon them, the importance of what's to come and what's next. And so, and even making the connection with student services, with faith, Malika just shared, spotlighting some of what's happening. It really is an all hands on deck, full comprehensive plan and service that we need to provide. Every area, every aspect, helping even our parents at the early age understand where we are going, what our expectation, what our standard is for a Brush High School graduate, in SEL schools.
Can I just along those lines, like you were talking about, Melissa, and like to Neil's point, when we graduated, it was a certain thing, but even it's changed so much, not even since then, but even in the last few years. I mean, Jack graduated in 2016 and his requirements were very different from Megan when she graduated in 2019. And I remember sitting in Sarah Ball's office when they first rolled out all these hours and all these other requirements, and the spreadsheet that woman put together, God bless her.
Yes.
And for every single student, and having to meet with them individually to go over her spreadsheet so that they can see what they had and what they didn't have. And I think I agree with you. I mean, I consider myself pretty knowledgeable, but I had no idea what Greg needs, for as a freshman. Franny, as a sophomore, their requirements are different. And they're both in school right now, Megan just graduated a year ago. And so not only is it very difficult for the kids to understand what they need to do, but then the parents and then the staff members who have to keep adjusting because the state keeps changing their mind. And who knows what's going to even, come down the road. And I'm so very excited to hear that you guys are looking at a system to try to monitor all of this, because there's just, otherwise I don't see how people could, do these things, or parents are going to understand what their children need to do.
If I may comment on that, Mrs. Ryan, I mean, that's been one of the big issues that when our superintendents get together and the ever-changing graduation requirements, what they don't realize is as they keep changing it, first of all, then by that time they give it to school districts at the 11th hour. As you can see, school districts are trying to make sense of what's right in a graduation requirement per that school district. And then the turnaround is really quick to try to communicate that with families who then need to sort out with regards to, I have a junior, it means Y, but I have a freshman, it means X. And I think that's one bit of biggest complaint is that they are not giving us long-term plans because they don't realize that it does affect kids that are in 8th grade and things that we're trying to plan as a school district. And if I sound like I'm being critical of the Ohio Department of Education, I am right now, because this has been a huge challenge, not just for school districts, but the impact on families and kids. So, that's, the facts, not complaining, but that's the facts that we're dealing with.
And that doesn't include potentially next year we get another rollout from ODE with slashes through it saying for this year we're exempting this because we're still in a pandemic. So it is all frustrating.
And our school counselors are doing an incredible job, because in the absence of something to manage all of this, they are managing it. They are keeping spreadsheets. They are counting, literally counting and making sure that they are keeping up with what students need and where they are, and to be able to answer those questions. And so for me, this is, a great time for us to be able, to provide that platform so that they can be in a better position to answer those questions of parents, and for parents to also see in real time. And again, I want to stress that for me, this is also part of that family and community engagement work. It's the social emotional, it's the behavioral health, it's the wraparound services and access and those kinds of things. But it's also helping our parents and our learning community to better access and understand academically what is required and what all of these changes are and what they mean, and giving our parents that information, putting that in their hands as well. So again, it is a complete and comprehensive student services and strategic partnerships type of work and effort. So stay tuned and look forward to more.
If I could just, when you look at that point, you talk about ever changing the needs of a school district. 10 years ago, when you didn't have as much technology, you wouldn't really, 15 years ago, you wouldn't see a technology integration specialist position. When you talk about student services, and 5 years ago, we might not have thought about, well, do you really need a family and engagement, coordinator or college and career readiness? You can see the very changing demands that are being put on families and students, and how school districts have to respond. Ms. Falkenberg, to your point, is like, who's going to be watching this? Who gets it done? We literally need to have folks, keep an eye on these things and again, make sense of it and be able to support our families and our students. And so, we see the college and career readiness as not by the time they get to high school, it's too late. It has to be a K-12 program. And we need to put more energy in preparing kids and families and a focus. I know that's something Ms. Thompson's doing with Mr. Hall. And so I look forward to, as we develop that at a later date, be able to bring it to another board work session, because I think that's going to be an interest for families, especially if our elementary folks are listening, to be able to do that. So it's really a very much an evolving school districts of, what they have to do. But again, I didn't want to belabor that point, but that's why you're seeing a lot of these roles and understanding what these roles are, because of the demands being placed on school districts and their families that they serve.
All right. Any other comments? Questions?
Not put up an agenda because I wanted to dive right into the presentation. So the only two items I had on the agenda were, again, the family engagement coordinator, and again, talking about the graduation seals. Again, we wanted to bring that to you this evening. You saw that it said working document, getting some feedback. I took some notes here. I still had some questions on it. I do think the guidance counselors and Ms. Thompson and Mr. Hall and Ms. Williams did a nice job at first blush here. I know there's probably, to Ms. Thompson's point, not a whole lot of think time because, so we do need to turn this around pretty quick, but I have, again, we'll be talking more about this. And again, I too have some questions on how we want to move forward with it. So I don't know if anybody has any more questions this evening before we move on from those discussion items.
No.
There is a need for executive session, and I didn't know whether Mr. Hill, whether I need to show the agenda while I do that. Do I need to present the agenda?
No, you don't necessarily have to present it. You can just say what we're going in for. And that the purposes would be for A and E on the agenda, I believe,
Yes.
for personnel and for legal.
Yes. So, can we get a motion to go into executive session? It is now 7:09.
So moved.
Second.
Do we need a roll call?
Yes. Mr. Bloomberg,
Aye.
Ms. Falkenberg,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Ms. Lee,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan.
Aye.
Thank you all for joining us this evening. Dr. Reed, I don't think you need anybody but Mr. Miller, correct?
Actually, I would like to have Ms. Thompson and Mr. Capel listen in. And actually, Mr. Miller, I have his notes. So other than Ms. Thompson, Ms. Capel, I think, and Mr. Hill, of course, I think everybody else can leave the meeting. And I will, Mr. Hill, is it okay if I stop streaming now? Did you get the roll call?
Yes.